The million-dollar question is Social Security going bankrupt? And I think the short answer is yes, right? We know that things are not as healthy. You can see the Board of Trustees did a report in 2024. So shows the trust fund is scheduled to run out of money in 2035, which is basically 11 years from now with no changes. And I think what we've seen in the past is no one wants to touch Social Security, right? When you look at these politicians, no one wants to touch it because it's like, oh, we got 11 years to deal with it. 11 years is going to go by really fast. And I think people are going to get pushed into a corner, and there's finally going to be some sort of reform or change because they have to make some changes, right? They have to adjust the system that was put into place almost 100 years ago, that when people were scheduled to pass away or longevity was to 65, 60 and 65, things have changed. The average age is now well into the 80s for most people. So I think we need to take that into consideration. It is important to remember that the majority of benefits will still be funded through the tax system. So, 80% of benefits come from taxes. So going bankrupt doesn't necessarily mean your benefits go to zero, but they can be impacted. And so I think anyone who's probably watching this, my guess is within 5 to 10 years of collecting benefits. Otherwise, you just really like us and want to watch this video. But I think people like Steve and I might be the ones that actually are impacted, right? If there is any reform, it might be for people that are younger, that have more time to recover. Because what you don't want to do is say, we're going to change this. We're going to push full retirement age back for people that are probably within 5 or 10 years of retirement or collecting Social Security, because that's been in their financial plan, right? That's what they've been counting on. And if you change that late in the game, they don't have as much time to correct course or recover if that dramatically changes things. And so, will benefits be cut? Not sure. I do think that something is going to need to happen. Again, any proposals put forward do not suggest cutting benefits for those who are 55 or older. So, essentially within 10 years. I know President Biden did propose increasing or raising the payroll tax percentage from the current 6.2%, and then gradually raising that by 2% would increase solvency by 75 years. Other options include raising the amount, right, of wages that Social Security is taxable, which is currently $168,000 for 2024. Something that was proposed was essentially creating a up to 168,000, and then he wouldn't or Social Security wouldn't tax wages until 400,000 again, and then above 400,000 would be taxable again. So what it was doing was creating this donut hole, right? Wages between 169 and 400 weren't taxable, but then every year there'd be this wage adjustment or this inflation adjustment that essentially would go from taxable up to 170, the next year would be 180, and then the next year would be 195, and so on and so forth, until that donut hole essentially closed and met 400,000. So that essentially would mean that all wages eventually would become taxable. And I don't think that's very popular. Obviously, it would take some time to get there, but I just don't see that passing. With everything that we talked about with longevity, with people living longer, and the full retirement age only adjusting from 65 to 67 over a 90-year period, something's got to give, right? And I think that is an easy one that, based off of when you were born, it would be 67 in 1 month, 67 in 2 months, so on and so forth, right? All the way up to, I guess it depends, right? 68, 69, 70, depending on what that full retirement age needs to go to. Lowering the cost of living adjustments this year is modest at 2.5%. With, I think it was 2022, we saw an 8.7% cost of living adjustment because of where inflation was. So there could be maybe a cap on that in the future that could make sense. And then cutting benefits. Obviously, that's the last option and not something that anyone wants to have to do. Who proposes that? It's kind of a losing argument, right? No one wants to propose cutting benefits.